All right, with that, we bring in Congressman John Garamendi of California as the government shutdown continues and the debate over funding for the border wall is at the heart of it. Congressman, nice to see you here. Bring up the tweet the president sent about Corporal Singh's murder in California. I believe we have that in the control room. President Trump tweeting this on Thursday. There is right now a full-scale manhunt going on in California for an illegal immigrant accused of shooting and killing a police officer during a traffic stop. Time to get tough on border security. Build the wall. At what point do Democrats have to at least agree that there's enough of a problem on the southern border that building something, call it a wall, a physical barrier, whatever, that will be put in place to stop people like the person who killed Officer Singh from coming over illegally?
Well, first of all, along with every Californian, we share the sorrow of the tragic shooting of Officer Singh. With regard to the question of border security, I can assure you that the Democrats, all of us in Congress and beyond, want border security. We want the money to be spent wisely in the most effective way possible, and that includes physical barriers in certain places. It also includes various kinds of observation technologies and also the ports of entry. All of those things have to be part of the puzzle, and we will and have supported such measures in the past.
What does the words border security mean? You just said physical barriers would be okay. So why not have a couple of $1 billion to build larger physical barriers, that being a wall? Why is this such a hang-up for Democrats?
Well, I do have a hang-up here, and that is taxpayer money being spent without any plans whatsoever. The president says $5 billion, but has not offered one iota of information about where that wall would be built, what it would contain. Is it a spike fence? Is it a cyclone fence? What is it? Where is it? What's it going to cost? No, listen. Congressman. Wait a minute. I'm on the Armed Services Committee. I'm on the Transportation Committee. We would not allow the Department of Transportation or any part of the Armed Services to spend a nickel without a specific plan where, when, and how, and for what purpose it's going to be spent. Now, the president comes up with a plan. He needs $5 billion for specific purposes. We'd be happy, at least I would be happy, to appropriate that money.
Okay, that's an interesting point. So
yes,
we have you on record that the issue here is not the wall. It's that you want a specific plan of what the wall looks like and where it's going to be, because we know Congress spends lots of money on lots of different things. I mean, there was $25 billion a year that's spent to maintain vacant federal properties.
Yes.
How specific does the plan need to be?
Well, what I would recommend is similar to what we require for the Army Corps of Engineers that's going to build a levee someplace or put in a lock on the river. They have to come with a specific plan as to what it's going to cost, what its purpose, what the benefit of that particular project would be. So, Mr. President, you want a wall. Where do you want to put it? What is it going to, what purpose will it serve? How will it interdict illegal crossings on the border? We know that we have an insufficient ports of entry. We also know that the Coast Guard interdicts 10 times the amount of drugs as does the Border Patrol on the Mexican border. So let's spend the money wisely. After all, it is a large amount of money, $5 billion. That's taxpayer money, or it's borrowed one way or the other. And I need, before I approve anything, I want to know where it's going to be spent, for what purpose, and what the benefit of it will be.
Real quickly, Congressman, we only have about 30 seconds left. But
sure.
This is a different perspective than many in your party who've said that there will be no wall. The president has to give up his idea of a wall if he is going to have a deal to reopen the government. And Nancy Pelosi's taken a much harder line, the speaker designee. Do you think, and have you heard, that perhaps once she becomes speaker in the new Congress, more Democrats would be willing to make the compromise you just made, or are you an outlier in your party?
Well, I don't know whether I'm an outlier or not, but I do know my colleagues want to be sure that every taxpayer dollar is spent wisely and usefully and accomplishing whatever the purpose might be. And I do know that on the 3rd of January, or possibly the 4th, we will vote out a proposal to end the shutdown. Hopefully, it'll be a compromise that the president can agree to.
Will it have money, significant amounts of money for border security?
Well, it certainly will have $1.3 billion. We've already agreed to that. Would there be more? We'll have to see what comes of the negotiations. And once again, I don't want to appropriate any money until I know that it'll be spent usefully.
All right. Congressman, nice to see you. When there's a plan for
Thank
a
you.
wall, we'll come back and show it to you, and we'll see if you vote for it. We appreciate it.
Show me the plans.
All right. Good to
Thank
see
you.
you, as always.